My name is Madison Carter, and I'm 26 years old. I've been dating my boyfriend, Sean, for 3 years, and we've been living together for 2.5 years. We're practically common law married at this point, and we've decided to finally have a wedding. The person who was the happiest about our marriage was my childhood friend, Betty. She moved next door when we were in kindergarten, and we've been like best friends, almost like sisters, ever since. We've always talked to each other about our relationship problems, and when I started living with Sean, she was the first person I introduced him to. Now that the wedding was here, I wanted Betty to celebrate with us, so I asked her to give the speech on behalf of my friends, thinking we'd continue to be close confidants in the future. But when it was time to cut the cake, Betty suddenly pushed me aside and grabbed the knife. She shoved me so hard that I was already shocked, and on top of that, she snatched the knife, leaving me completely confused. Betty, what are you doing?
What do you think? I'm the one who's going to cut the cake, not you.
What are you talking about?
Is it okay if I do it?
She asked Sean with a big smile on her face. I was sure Sean would stop her. That's what I thought, but I was completely wrong. Unbelievably.
Of course. It'll make a great memory.
With that, they both held the knife together. Even the venue staff were shocked, unsure whether to intervene or not. After all, the groom was smiling so happily. On the other hand, I was completely dazed, unable to understand what was going on. As I stared blankly at them, Sean and Betty grinned and cut into the cake. The guests were also shocked, and my parents were just as surprised. Everyone was looking around at each other, trying to figure out what was going on. And as if that wasn't enough, the two of them even kissed right in front of me after cutting the cake. Watching them, I finally snapped out of my daze and couldn't help but yell at Betty. What are you doing? Why are you suddenly doing this?
Isn't it obvious? Sean is too good for you.
Too good. Sean is my fiancé. Sean, why aren't you stopping this? As I yelled in disbelief, Sean pulled Betty close, laughing.
Sorry, but we've been seeing each other.
What? Seeing each other? What do you mean?
Exactly what it sounds like. Sean and I are a couple.
I had a feeling, but I never thought it was actually true. No, I didn't want to believe it. About 3 months after Sean and I started living together, I introduced him to Betty. Ever since then, something felt off between them. Even when I wasn't home, Betty would come over, and when I got back, they would suddenly act distant. But they exchanged glances so often that I couldn't help but suspect something was going on. Still, I never imagined she would steal my boyfriend. I guess I tried to convince myself that they were just good friends because he was my boyfriend. But their relationship deepened quickly, and Sean started going out more and more. Why? Why are you doing this now? At the reception, if your relationship was that deep, you could have told me sooner. Why come out with it at this moment?
Well, because this timing has the most impact. Don't you think it hurts the most right now?
You're saying you did this to hurt me?
That, and I guess it's the most fun right now.
Fun? At the reception. We're finally getting married after 3 years, and you're doing all this just because it's fun. This is just too cruel.
But you must have thought it was strange, didn't you? The bride is wearing a pure white wedding dress, so why would I, as a guest, be wearing a white dress too? You must have thought something was up.
Betty said this as she picked up the hem of her dress to show it off. This is awful. Sean, how could you? I did think it was strange, now that she mentions it. It almost looked like a wedding dress. But who would have thought it was an actual wedding dress? All I could do was glare in disbelief, holding back my tears with all my might. Inside, I kept repeating to myself, "This is awful, horrible, the worst." At that moment, someone from the guest seat stood up, and he started walking toward the cake. What's happening? What is he planning to do? While I was struggling to hold back my tears, Betty's face had turned pale.
Why?
She covered her mouth with her hand, clearly shaken. The cheerful Betty from moments ago had vanished. It seemed like the arrival of this guest was changing everything. Sean, oblivious to Betty's reaction, was beaming at the guest.
Jack, this is
It looked like the guest was Sean's boss.
Betty. What's wrong? This is my company CEO.
What? The CEO?
Betty, what's going on? You're my fiancé. So why are you ruining someone else's wedding?
Wait, fiancé?
Fiancé. Betty, what is this about?
Why is he here? Why did you invite him?
Why? Because he's my boss, of course.
That doesn't mean you had to invite him.
Sean's company is a startup. It's small, with a focus on quality over quantity. Though it's not publicly traded, its growth has been impressive, and the pay is quite good. The atmosphere in the company is also close-knit, and the CEO is approachable, so when Sean said he was going to invite him, I didn't object. I was actually excited to meet someone who had started a company so young and made it so successful. But for Betty, this must have been a huge miscalculation. After all, she had been bragging to me about how her fiancé was such an amazing person, and now that very person had caught her stealing my fiancé and cutting the wedding cake with him. This was probably the worst-case scenario for her.
Sean, I'm Betty's fiancé. But what exactly is your relationship with her?
Well, you see.
This is just a joke. We were just trying to surprise Madison, that's all.
A joke? You cut the cake, knowing it's an important ceremony for your wife.
Well, that's…
Sean, what were you thinking? You lived with your wife for 3 years, but you were dating Betty the whole time. And then you planned to cut the cake together at the wedding.
No, this was just a prank.
A prank? How do you think your wife feels about this?
Sean fell silent.
So, what's really going on between you two?
Well, that is…
Sean's hands were clenched tight, and he looked like he was shaking. But then, as if he had made up his mind, he looked straight at Jack.
We're in a relationship. We love each other.
What are you saying? Stop it, Sean. That's not true, Jack. We're not in a relationship, and we don't love each other.
Betty, there's no point lying now. We just kissed. You can't hide it anymore.
I'm not lying. We're not in a relationship. It was all a joke, just a bad dream.
Betty, how could you? You're engaged to me, but you were seeing another man.
No, it's not like that.
No, I'm a man, and I'll tell the truth. I love Betty. I'm sorry to Madison, but the one I truly love is Betty.
What are you talking about? You deceived the woman you were about to marry. And you think that makes you a man? You think pulling something like this makes you manly?
The room suddenly erupted in applause. If there's anyone who's acting manly, it's Jack, who's standing up for me despite being betrayed by Betty.
What makes you think you're a man? Don't you feel sorry for your wife?
Well,
I never imagined someone like you worked for my company.
Was Jack angry because he was betrayed by Betty? Or was it because he pitied me? Whatever the reason, he was saying all the things I couldn't bring myself to say to Sean, but it was all too much for me to handle at this point. Feeling like everyone in the room saw me as the pool woman, I rushed out of the venue to escape. As if that was a signal, all the guests, both friends and family, started leaving as well. The only one who stayed until the end was Jack, but even he eventually left the room, giving the two of them a look of disdain.
This was supposed to be our perfect wedding.
Why?
What?
Why did you say that? You should have known just now that he's my fiancé, right? So why did you say that? Now I can't marry him.
Betty, I said it because I truly love you. I hurt Madison because I wanted to be with you. That's why I went along with your little prank.
Prank, Sean? You said it would be fun too.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. I'm really sorry.
Sorry doesn't cut it.
Betty, you do love me, right? You revealed our relationship because you love me, didn't you?
Yes, I do love you. But it's just romantic love. You're a good match as a boyfriend, but marriage is a different story. Of course, I'd prefer a rich man.
What? No way.
Sean was stunned by Betty's true feelings. At that moment, I was in the dressing room, wiping away the makeup that had run from my tears. I had worked so hard, visiting the venue countless times and going through so many meetings to make this the perfect wedding. How pathetic. I should have known something was off with Sean. As I wiped off my makeup, it felt like no matter how much I wiped, I couldn't get it clean. Just then, Sean came in.
Madison, can we talk?
He sat down next to me in silence and started apologizing profusely.
I'm so sorry. I never thought it would turn out like this. I'm really sorry.
You never thought it would turn out like this? How could you not? Anyone could see this coming.
Maybe, but I got carried away. Betty said it would be funny if the bride was swapped during the cake cutting. I thought it would be funny too, and that it would be a memorable moment.
How could you think so lightly of this? Did you have no idea how I would feel?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to make Betty happy.
That's the lowest thing I've ever heard. Are you here to apologize or to brag?
No, I'm here to apologize.
Funny, because all I'm hearing is how much you love Betty.
Well, yeah, I do love her.
I see.
It's not that I was unhappy with you, but being with Betty excites me. He's always saying wild things, coming up with ideas that are totally out there. It's thrilling.
I see.
So, it's not that it's your fault.
Believe me, I never thought it was my fault.
That's good. I was worried you might start blaming yourself.
Don't worry, it's clear that you and Betty are at fault here. I didn't do anything wrong. So, you're going to cover the entire cost of this wedding, right?
Could we split it?
Of course not.
Yeah, I figured.
Hey, Sean, why didn't you tell me sooner? If you wanted to marry Betty, you didn't have to expose it at the reception. You had plenty of chances, didn't you? Did you think I'd make a fuss?
No, I wanted to tell you earlier, but Betty insisted it had to be at the reception. She said it would have more impact that way, and I agreed. I did tell her it would be too cruel to you, but she said it would be fun, so.
I see. Well, then we're done.
Wait, what?
If you love Betty, then you should be with her.
No, that's not it. I'm not going to marry Betty.
What? What do you mean?
I do love Betty, but I think I can only be happy in a marriage with you, Madison. Betty feels the same way. She says she enjoys the romance with me, but she should marry Jack. So, Since it's just a romantic relationship, there's no need for us to break up.
What are you even saying?
You're the only one I want to marry.
And you think that's supposed to make me happy? After you exposed your affair in front of everyone and ruined the reception, you still think I'd be thrilled to marry you? Are you kidding me? How much more are you going to insult me?
Madison, don't say that. I'm not marrying Betty, and even if we keep our physical relationship, nothing else has to change.
Get out. Are you serious?
Madison, calm down.
Shut up and get out. We're done. Sean, shocked by my anger, which he had never seen before, scrambled out of the room. How dare he say something like that? How far does he have to go to make me feel like an idiot? Looking at myself in the mirror, I started to despise the white dress I was wearing. I picked this out for him and was so happy to wear it. I tore off the dress, changed into my regular clothes, and left the room. I might never have another wedding or reception again. The thought filled me with anger, making me want to shout for the last 3 years of my life back. As I walked quickly down the hallway, about to pass the hall, I saw a man slumped on a sofa. It was Jack, Betty's fiancé. Seeing him so dejected, unable to hide his shock, made me feel a sense of camaraderie, and I couldn't help but speak to him. Are you okay?
Oh, you're from earlier.
I'm Madison Carter.
I'm Jack Thompson. What's your relationship with Betty?
Well, we're the same age, and she moved next door when we were in kindergarten. Since then, we've been like best friends, almost like sisters.
Best friends. And yet, she took your partner. I'm so sorry.
No, it's not your fault, Jack. Betty has always had this side to her.
She has?
Well, maybe, I don't know.
It's okay. You can say whatever you want.
Right? Well, Betty has always had a thing for taking other people's boyfriends. She never took one of mine before, but she did it to all our other friends. I once asked her why she did it. She said she couldn't stand seeing another woman get more attention than her. Betty had a boyfriend at the time, but it didn't seem to matter.
And knowing that, you still introduced her to your partner.
She had never taken one of my boyfriends before, so I thought it would be okay this time too. Besides, I knew she was engaged. She bragged about it a lot. I thought that someone who was so happy wouldn't do something to ruin that happiness.
That's a reasonable assumption.
Jack, you're the CEO of the company Sean works for, right?
Yes, I am.
How did you and Betty meet?
At a bar I frequented. I was having a tough time at work and was completely exhausted. That's when I met Betty for the first time. She sat next to me and said, "You look tired." She was bright, charming, and said the most unexpected things. At that time in my life, that was exactly what I needed. We started dating, and I couldn't let her go.
It seems like Jack is someone who has a pure view of love. And yet, he got caught up with someone like Betty. Or maybe it's because he's so pure that Betty was able to ensnare him. The real femme fatale.
I never imagined Betty would do something like this. No matter how busy I was, I never missed a date, and I gave her anything she wanted. What went wrong?
It's just her personality. There's no one to blame, really. But when it comes to Sean, he's definitely at fault.
You're right.
He told me earlier that he has no intention of marrying Betty. He said he wanted to proceed with our marriage and keep Betty as his mistress, just like before. I couldn't believe he would suggest such a thing and yelled at him to stop making a fool out of me.
I don't blame you. So Betty plans to continue the affair too.
Probably. She wants to enjoy romance while still having a husband.
What a woman.
What a man.
We both fell for some terrible people.
That's true. I only had eyes for Sean, never even noticed anyone else. Maybe I was too devoted and it became too much for him.
Being devoted is a good thing. Actually, I'm the same way. I guess we're both loyal.
It seems so. What are you going to do now, Jack?
What do you mean?
I just spoke with Sean and decided to break up. He did all this without any remorse, said he still wanted to marry me, and then mentioned continuing his affair with Betty. There's no way I can forgive that.
You're right. I'm probably in the same situation. I haven't made a firm decision yet, but if I marry her, I'll always be reminded of what happened.
Exactly. Once you're betrayed, it's hard to trust the person again.
Yes, I don't think I could. It would be hard to focus on work too.
That's true.
But while I only witnessed the betrayal, your entire wedding was ruined. That must have been incredibly traumatic.
No, it's the same. Pain isn't something you can measure.
That's a good point. You're right.
Could we exchange contact information? We might need to talk later.
Of course.
Jack took out his phone and we exchanged contact information. When I finally made it home, exhausted, I found Sean and Betty there. What are you doing here? My tone was sharper than I intended.
Why so angry?
Maybe she didn't understand why I was so upset, or maybe she genuinely didn't think she'd done anything wrong. Betty laughed as she said that. Sean, on the other hand, seemed to be watching my reaction as if he had some idea of what I was feeling. After what you did, it would be strange if I weren't angry. I'm done being your friend.
You're being so petty. Why get so worked up over something like this? Life is going to throw bigger things at you.
Don't worry. As long as I'm not friends with you, nothing bigger will ever happen.
So, I heard you're breaking up with Sean. Are you sure you're okay with that?
Of course. I'm not interested in staying with a partner who plans to keep seeing you as his mistress.
I was just bothered by how happy you and Sean seemed together. I mean, I'm prettier than you, so why did you get to be the one who looked happy? It didn't make sense. So I thought I'd play a little prank.
You call that a little prank?
Yes, exactly.
You exposed your affair in front of everyone? That looked like you were trying to take Sean from me.
Well, that's how I made it look. But I didn't mean it that way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, today was just for fun, like giving a speech as the friend of the bride.
What are you even talking about?
Why can't you get it? There's no need to be so mad. Why don't we just share Sean?
Share him? Are you out of your mind? That's not happening.
Well, I could do it. I mean, I'm not planning to marry him anyway. Isn't that right, Sean?
Sean's face tightened as Betty sought his agreement. But though he nodded, it was clear he didn't mean it. It doesn't seem like Sean is on board with that.
No, really. I have a fiancé after all.
A fiancé, huh?
And besides, the one I really want to marry is Jack. If I'm getting married, it has to be to someone rich. Sean is just one of his employees, a salaried worker. If I married a salaried worker, life would be tough, and I wouldn't be able to buy what I want. I couldn't stand that.
Sean seemed genuinely shocked by Betty's unexpected admission, unable to hide his disappointment. But Betty didn't seem to care at all about Sean's feelings. So, you're not going to marry Sean?
Exactly. That's why you shouldn't think about breaking up. You've been together for 3 years. Why throw that away now? It would just be a waste of time. Besides, at your age, it's not like you're going to find another guy that easily.
Is that so?
Of course it is.
Well, then I guess the same could be said for you, Betty.
What, me? I didn't.
I just spoke with your fiancé, and he said he's breaking up with you. He can't forgive you for having this kind of relationship with another man while being engaged.
No way.
It's true. Here's a tip. If you want to marry Jack, you should stop hanging around with Sean and go explain yourself to him.
Is that really true?
After what he saw today, almost no one would still want to marry you. No matter how confident you are, you should realize the ground is slipping out from under you. Betty's eyes widened and she bolted out of the house. Sean, left behind, looked utterly lost now that the woman he brought to convince me had fled. Well, I'm going to pack my things and leave.
Leave? Where are you going to go?
Anywhere, as long as I'm not with you.
Don't say that. I don't want to break up with you.
You're only saying that because Betty won't marry you, so now you want to go back to me. But once something's broken, it can't be fixed. Maybe some people can, but I can't. Betraying me and continuing your affair while expecting me to stay. That's impossible.
No. I'll apologize. Please, let's keep going.
Ignoring Sean's pitiful pleas, I went into the bedroom, packed my things into a large bag, and left the house. A while later, I got a panicked call from Sean.
Why is there a bill from a lawyer?
What are you talking about?
Your lawyer sent me a bill for damages. They're asking for $30,000 from both me and Betty.
Well, that makes sense. We were basically in a common law marriage. I'm suing for the breakdown of our relationship due to infidelity.
Betty's fiancé is also asking for $50,000 each.
Well, he is a CEO after all. Given his position, that amount makes sense. He has a reputation to protect, and his honor was damaged.
How could you afford a lawyer? And it's the same lawyer as Jack's.
Well, Jack suggested that we both go after you two. He's covering the costs, so we're suing for a substantial amount. Sean, you're probably going to get fired, so paying it will be tough.
Why would I get fired?
Isn't it obvious? You stole the man's fiancé. If he doesn't fire you, that must mean you're some kind of irreplaceable employee. But you're not, are you?
No, Betty says she can't pay this. And now she's furious because Jack is breaking up with her.
Is that so? That sounds tough.
Yeah, it is. So please, at least drop your claim.
No way. Why should I drop it? I'm the victim here. If you really want me to drop it, then give me back the last 3 years of my life.
Don't be unreasonable.
Then just give up. Give up and marry Betty. Now that she's broken up with Jack, you have a chance, don't you?
No way, she's so scary, always yelling at me. I can't handle being yelled at for the rest of my life.
But that's the kind of thing you liked about her, right? I don't care, just don't call me about this stuff anymore. I hung up after saying that, but Sean kept begging for help until the end. Afterward, Betty tried several times to reconcile with her fiancé, but it didn't work. Sean also wanted to get back together with me, but I firmly refused. In the end, since neither of the relationships could be fixed, Sean, lacking any standards, considered marrying Betty just because they were both left alone. But by then, Betty had regained her confidence and turned him down flat. The reason, of course, was that Sean was just a poor employee. Later, Betty dumped all her alimony payments onto Sean and disappeared. Sean, who had no way of paying such a huge amount, panicked and tried to get help from Betty's ex-fiancé, Jack. But Jack, understandably, told him he was getting what he deserved. Sean showed Betty's bill as well, saying that if he got fired, there was no way he could handle these claims. He never expected that Betty would try to push her share of the damages onto him, but it didn't change the outcome. No one was going to help him because he was in the wrong. Then he tried asking for a job, but was told that no one could hire someone they couldn't trust. With no other options, Sean started working as a promoter for a nightclub, thinking it would bring in some money, but all he does is cry about how he keeps getting beaten up. As for me, I've found a connection with Jack, Betty's ex-fiancé, and we're currently dating. We're both loyal people, so it's a peaceful relationship. We're planning to get married next spring, and we're already laughing about how this time we'll be the ones cutting the cake together.